My beloved brothers, when Allah wants to prepare a man for something great, He does not begin by giving him comfort. He begins by breaking him, not to destroy him, but to strip away his pride, his attachments, and his dependence on people. Before Allah raises a man, He empties him, cleanses him, and teaches him to stand with nothing and no one but his Lord. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah tests those whom He loves most, and some of the strongest men in history were shaped through pain. Dawood alayhi salam was tested before becoming a king. Yusuf alayhi salam tasted betrayal before sitting on the throne. Musa alayhi salam faced fear and exile before leading his people. And our beloved Prophet Muhammad endured loneliness, loss, and rejection before Allah entrusted him with the greatest mission on earth. So if Allah is breaking you today, it may be because He is preparing your heart, strengthening your character, and molding your soul for a role that requires wisdom, patience, humility, and unshakable faith. Your pain is not punishment, it is preparation. Allah breaks pride before He elevates a man. When a man believes he can build his life with his own hands, Allah shows him how weak those hands truly are. Pride whispers, "You did it yourself," and Allah responds by removing the very things a man thought he controlled. Sometimes Allah takes away wealth to show that provision never came from a job. Sometimes He lets relationships slip away to show that hearts are under His command. Sometimes He blocks a path we desperately want, so we learn that guidance and success come only from Him. When the arrogant heart is humbled, it finally becomes capable of gratitude, sincerity, and true faith. Allah does not break a man to humiliate him, He breaks him to purify him. The Quran tells us that Qarun boasted of his riches, saying, "I was given it because of knowledge I had." And Allah destroyed everything he owned to teach him the truth. Provision comes from Allah alone. Pride blinds a man to reality. It makes him worship his talents, his reputation, his strength. So Allah shatters the illusion to save him from falsehood. When everything you relied on collapses, you finally see who was holding you all along. Not money, not people, not your skill, but your Lord. Look at Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Before Islam, he was known for his strength, his fiery temper, and his pride. Yet Allah broke his heart with helplessness the day he heard the Quran being recited in his sister's home. Tears fell from the eyes of a man who once felt invincible. It was at that moment when strength turned into surrender that his real power was born. Allah stripped him of arrogance, and through that surrender, He transformed him into one of the greatest leaders in history. Strength is not removed by humility, it is completed by it. When Allah wants to elevate a man, He removes the false pillars he leans on. We often lean on our physical strength, our education, our status, our position among people. And when Allah breaks those supports, we think we are falling. But in reality, He is redirecting us to lean on the only foundation that never collapses: Tawakkul. Dependence on Allah is not a weakness. It is the source of unshakable power. What a man builds with ego will collapse. What he builds with sincerity will last beyond his lifetime. The Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was not raised to leadership by comfort. He was elevated through betrayal, slavery, injustice, and prison. Pride would have made him bitter, angry, and vengeful. Instead, hardship purified him. The man who emerged from the prison was not the same young boy thrown into a well. He had learned patience, restraint, mercy, and forgiveness. Allah did not just free him, He honored him. Allah did not just give him power, He made his character worthy of it. Greatness without humility is a disaster. With humility, it becomes mercy. A proud heart loves praise, but a humbled heart loves Allah. Pride forces a man to chase validation from people. Humility allows him to seek acceptance only from his Lord. Allah breaks pride so a man stops living for applause and starts living for sincerity. A proud man prays so people notice him. A humbled man prays because he knows he cannot live without speaking to his Lord. A proud man gives charity so others call him generous. A humbled man gives because he knows nothing he owns truly belongs to him. Both actions may look the same, but only humility makes them valuable. Sometimes Allah breaks a man by making him fail at something he believed he was perfect at. Not to embarrass him, but to teach him that even mastery is a gift from Allah. A surgeon may lose confidence after a mistake. A scholar may forget his knowledge. A businessman may lose his trade. But many of these men return stronger, wiser, more careful, and more grateful than before. They lead with humility instead of ego. They succeed with gratitude instead of pride. Allah does not ruin their lives. He saves them from themselves. There are men who never learn until life forces them to. They ignore reminders, warnings, and advice. So Allah sends hardship as a teacher. Pain becomes the classroom, and humility becomes the lesson. The strongest men you meet are often those who cry to Allah in the quiet of the night. Their humility is not weakness. It is what makes them safe from arrogance, envy, and corruption. Allah protects a man from pride because pride destroys leaders, corrupts power, and darkens the heart. If Allah is breaking your pride, do not fight it. The ego is loud, stubborn, and blind. It resists any force that threatens its comfort. But if you surrender, if you let Allah cleanse your heart instead of clinging to your image and reputation, you will find peace like you have never known. Pride exhausts a man because he is always trying to prove himself. Humility frees him because he no longer depends on people's approval, only Allah's mercy matters. When Allah breaks a man's pride, it is because He wants to raise him to a level his ego could never reach. Arrogance makes a man fragile. Humility makes him unbreakable. Pride closes the doors of guidance. Humility opens them. Pride keeps blessings away. Humility invites them. So if Allah is humbling you today, thank Him. You are not being pushed down. You are being prepared to rise. What Allah builds in a humbled heart becomes a legacy, not just a life. And soon you will understand that this breaking was the beginning of your elevation. Isolation teaches dependence on Allah alone. There comes a time in every man's life when Allah separates him from people, not to leave him abandoned, but to empty his heart of every false reliance. When you suddenly feel alone, when the company you trusted disappears, when the voices that used to comfort you fall silent, it is not a coincidence. It is a divine invitation. Allah removes the noise so you can finally hear His call. In solitude, the heart wakes up. It stops chasing attention and begins searching for meaning. And only then does a man realize that Allah was always near, but the world around him was too loud for him to notice. If Allah has placed you in a season of isolation, it means He wants to purify your intention. When a man is surrounded by people, his actions easily become mixed. He prays with a desire to be seen. He works hoping for praise. He helps others seeking recognition. But when no one is watching, sincerity is born. You worship only for Him. You act only for Him. You cry only to Him. Isolation strips the heart from the disease of showing off, and sincerity replaces it with a deeper, purer love for Allah. The deeds done in solitude are the deeds that truly shape the soul. Look at the story of Musa alayhi salam. Before he became a leader of his people, he was forced into exile, alone in a strange land, unknown and unseen. That isolation was not a setback, it was preparation. In the quiet of loneliness, Musa found a life of service, humility, and reliance on Allah. When Allah isolated him, he was building the strength that fame could not build. Allah taught him to lead when no one was following, to trust when no one was supporting. Leadership came later, but dependence on Allah came first. Even our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was prepared in isolation. Before revelation descended, he would retreat into the cave of Hira, away from the crowd, away from business, away from society's distractions. No one praised him there. No one comforted him there. In that silence, Allah shaped the heart of a leader who would transform the world. Revelation came not in a busy marketplace, not among crowds, but in solitude. That is the lesson. Greatness begins when the heart becomes empty enough for Allah to fill it. A man who relies on people becomes disappointed, but a man who relies on Allah becomes unshakable. During isolation, Allah shows you who truly remains when everyone else leaves. Friends can be sincere, but even they have limits. family can love you, but they cannot heal you. A teacher can guide you, but he cannot carry your burden. Only Allah knows your pain, your fears, your weaknesses, your secrets, and He alone can sustain you without ever tiring. Isolation teaches the heart to stop expecting from creation and start hoping in the Creator. In loneliness, you begin to witness how many times Allah saved you without anyone knowing. You remember accidents you narrowly escaped, sins you were protected from, emotions you survived, and wounds you healed from when no one even noticed you were hurting. You start realizing that Allah was your companion in every silent struggle, every sleepless night, every suppressed tear. Isolation becomes a mirror that reflects the truth. You were never alone. You were always being carried. Sometimes Allah removes people because the heart has become too attached to them. So long as you depend on someone else for happiness, confidence, or identity, your heart is enslaved. Allah wants to free you. The absence of people is not a punishment, it is liberation. When the heart learns contentment without relying on anyone, it becomes ready to love others in a healthier, purer way, not out of need, not out of desperation, but out of sincerity. True love begins when your heart no longer worships creation. The pain of isolation is not meant to break you, it is meant to redirect you. When conversations stop, turn your whispers toward Allah. When advice is absent, consult the Quran. When comfort is gone, fall into sujood. Loneliness becomes dangerous only when a man sits in it without turning to his Lord. But when he fills that loneliness with dhikr, dua, and tears in the night, it transforms from prison to paradise. The same isolation that once hurt him becomes the very thing that heals him. The heart in solitude begins to taste the sweetness of Iman that crowds can never offer. You start enjoying Quran not because someone encouraged you, but because it nourishes your soul. You pray long in sujood, not because anyone notices, but because it brings you peace. You make dua not to complain, but to connect. You start to love Allah without needing anything from Him except His closeness. That is a love you cannot learn in a room full of people. It is born in silence. Isolation also exposes your weaknesses so Allah can strengthen them. When there is no one to support you, you learn to stand. When there is no one to reassure you, you learn to trust. When there is no one to guide you, you learn to seek knowledge from the Quran and Sunnah. Allah uses solitude to reveal what you lack and then nurture what you need. A man who relied on others becomes a man who relies on Allah, and that transformation is the foundation of real spiritual maturity. Once the heart learns dependence on Allah, the presence or absence of people no longer controls it. You love people without clinging to them, and you serve people without expecting from them. You become grateful for companionship, but not desperate for it. You welcome friendships, but you are not broken by their loss. You will walk among people while your heart remains anchored to the one who never leaves. That is true independence, and it is only learned through isolation. So if Allah has placed you in a season of loneliness, do not rush to escape it. Sit with it, learn from it, and let it purify you. This quiet period may be building a strength that social life could never teach. Your prayers will deepen, your heart will soften, your trust will solidify. Isolation is not a sign that Allah is distancing Himself from you. It is a sign that He wants you closer. Soon you will leave this season not weaker but stronger, more sincere, and more connected to the one who has never left your side. And when Allah finally sends people back into your life, your heart will meet them from a place of confidence, not dependence. You will stand among them with dignity, wisdom, and inner peace. You will love without attachment, help without expectations, and live without fear of loss. Because the man who learned to depend on Allah alone can walk through any crowd without ever feeling lonely again. Hardship builds strength, patience, and wisdom. Hardship is not a sign that Allah is displeased with you. It is a sign that He is building you. A man does not become strong in comfort, nor does he learn patience in times of ease. Allah allows trials to polish the heart the way fire purifies gold. When life becomes painful, your character either breaks or transforms. And Allah intends transformation, not destruction. What feels heavy today might be the very training your soul needs to carry a greater mission tomorrow. The Quran teaches us that struggle is part of the journey to success. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Notice Allah didn't say hardship might be followed by ease, He guaranteed it. Hardship is not the opposite of ease, it is the path that leads to it. A man who runs from challenges runs from growth. A man who trusts Allah through his trials walks toward elevation. You cannot develop strength without resistance, and Allah sometimes pushes you so you learn how far you can go only by relying on Him. When Allah wants to build strength in your heart, He places you in situations where your own strength is not enough. You try to solve problems but fail. You attempt to fix relationships but lose them. You strive for success but face delay. That frustration forces you to examine where your confidence truly lies. If it lies in your efforts alone, Allah weakens them. If it lies in people, Allah distances them. If it lies in wealth, Allah reduces it. And when your heart finally learns to rely on Him, the strength you gain becomes unshakable. Patience is not learned through quotes or lectures. It is learned through experiences that test your limits. A man becomes patient when he is brought to situations he cannot speed up, reverse, or escape. When every door is closed, he stops pushing in panic and begins waiting with hope. Patience is not passive, it is persistence without losing faith. You continue trying but without anxiety. You keep moving forward but without rushing fate. Patience is the calmness of someone who knows Allah chooses the timing, not the problem. Wisdom is born when pain meets reflection. Many people suffer, but not everyone learns. Wisdom comes from asking yourself during hardship, what is Allah teaching me? You begin to notice lessons you never saw before. Humility, restraint, self-control, empathy. You become softer with people because you know how pain feels. You stop judging quickly because you understand struggle. Wisdom is when trials no longer make you bitter, but make you insightful, caring, and spiritually mature. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes strength is quietly enduring the day without complaining. Sometimes it's praying even when your heart feels heavy. Sometimes it's smiling so your loved ones don't break with you. True strength is not showing muscles, but showing resilience, the ability to rise again and again, even with wounds still healing. Allah loves a strong believer, not because of physical power, but because strength reflects faith in His plan. Every hardship carries a hidden mercy, even if you cannot see it right away. Sometimes Allah delays what you want because if you received it too early, it would harm you. Sometimes He removes people because their presence would corrupt your heart. Sometimes He reduces your income to protect you from arrogance. And sometimes He breaks your plans because your dreams are too small. Allah takes nothing from a believer except to replace it with something better, even if that better doesn't arrive immediately. Look at Yusuf alayhi salam. Every trial he endured built a part of his character that prepared him for leadership. Betrayal taught him patience. Slavery taught him humility. Prison taught him wisdom and compassion. Had he received power without hardship, he might have lacked empathy. It is only through pain that he became a ruler who could forgive the very people who wronged him. Power without purification destroys. Purification through hardship makes power a blessing. There are things you cannot learn when life is easy. You cannot learn gratitude without experiencing need. You cannot learn reliance without experiencing weakness. You cannot learn forgiveness without being hurt. You cannot learn resilience without being knocked down. Hardship teaches the soul what comfort hides. It makes you aware of Allah in a way luxury never could. It trains your character like invisible spiritual exercise, painful but transformative. When hardship comes, Shaitan whispers that Allah does not love you, but the Quran tells us the opposite. Allah tests those He loves. Hardship is not rejection, it is selection. It means Allah sees strength inside you that you have not discovered yet. Trials uncover abilities you didn't know you had. They unlock patience you didn't think you could practice. They awaken surrender you didn't know existed in your heart. Hardship reveals the believer within the human. A man who has never been tested cannot guide others through their pain. Hardship gives you experience that becomes medicine for others one day. The advice you offer does not come from theory, but from scars that healed. Trials shape leaders, healers, teachers, and protectors. Through your suffering, Allah might be preparing you to lift others. Your story might become the reason someone else does not lose hope. Allah does not waste the pain of the believers. He turns it into purpose. Some hardships come not to change your situation, but to change you. Perhaps Allah is not removing the difficulty because you have not yet become the version of yourself that the next stage of life requires. A door may be ready to open, but Allah will not open it until your heart is ready to walk through without arrogance, fear, or impulsiveness. Hardship forces transformation before elevation. It teaches you to become before you receive. Endurance is a gift that cannot be inherited. It must be earned. You can admire strong believers, but you cannot copy their strength without walking through some hardship of your own. Just like muscles grow through pressure, the soul grows through trials. The believer who stands firm today has cried many tears alone. His calmness is not natural. It was built by nights of praying while exhausted, fasting through difficulty, trusting during uncertainty. Strength has a history. True believers do not become attached to results. They become attached to effort. They work hard but surrender outcomes to Allah. Hardship teaches this balance. You try, you pray, you strive, but you do not panic over what you cannot control. You understand that success is in effort, not in outcomes. A man who learns this becomes fearless. He's not afraid of failure because his worth is not measured by results, but by sincerity. Sometimes Allah closes every door to show you a door you never knew existed. Hardship makes you creative in faith. You begin to search for solutions in places you never looked before. In dua, in tahajjud, in seeking knowledge, in serving others. You discover that some solutions come only through ibadah, that some peace comes only through tearful salah. Hardship introduces you to a spiritual toolbox you never knew you needed. The hardest tests often come right before the biggest blessings. This is the sunnah of life and the promise of Allah. Before victory at Badr, the believers were outnumbered and desperate. Before the conquest of Makkah, they endured years of persecution. Before the Prophet Muhammad received revelation, he experienced intense spiritual discomfort, searching for truth. Right before the dawn, the night is darkest. Right before relief, the heart is tested the most. Hardship also teaches you gratitude in ways comfort never could. When you finally ease into relief after a struggle, every small blessing becomes precious. A warm meal tastes sweeter after hunger. A kind friend feels like a gift after loneliness. A healthy day becomes a treasure after sickness. Hardship magnifies blessings like light magnifies through darkness. You begin to thank Allah not just for the big things, but for every breath and every calm moment. Wisdom is when you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is Allah writing for me through this? Hardship becomes a story, not a prison. You begin to trust that your pain is part of a bigger narrative designed by the one who knows your future better than you know your past. You stop trying to control the script and start trusting the author. Wisdom is faith that sees beyond the moment. The believer does not simply go through hardship, he grows through hardship. He enters it with questions and leaves with lessons. He begins it with fear and leaves with clarity. He walks into it relying on himself and walks out relying on Allah. Hardship may bend you, but it will not break you if Allah is your support. Instead of shattering, you will sharpen. Instead of collapsing, you will elevate. Instead of losing yourself, you will discover who you truly are. So the next time hardship arrives, meet it with patience, effort, and hope. Believe that Allah sees your struggle, hears your dua, and knows your limits. Trust that He does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. Strength will come, wisdom will come, relief will come, and you will walk out of this season not as who you were, but as who Allah meant you to become. Hardship is not the end of your story. It is the chapter that prepares you for greatness. Loss removes attachments that block your destiny. Loss is one of the most painful teachers Allah sends, yet it is also one of the most transformative. When Allah takes something or someone away, He is not trying to harm you, He is trying to free you. Many destinies are delayed because the heart is holding on to what was never meant to stay. You may not see it during the moment of heartbreak, but every loss has a hidden mercy wrapped inside it. Allah removes what blocks your path long before you even realize you were being blocked. Sometimes we love something so deeply that it blinds us from what Allah wants to give us. The heart becomes attached to a person, a dream, a plan, or a place, and we begin to believe that life cannot move forward without it. That is when Allah intervenes. He removes the attachment before it becomes an idol. He breaks the bond before it becomes a barrier. He teaches your heart to breathe again without depending on something that cannot sustain you. Loss becomes protection even when it feels like pain. A man often does not know how much of himself he has given away until Allah pulls something out of his life. Only then does he realize how attached he had become. Whether it is a relationship, a friendship, a job, or a dream, the removal exposes what your heart depended on. Allah does not want you enslaved to creation, so He breaks the attachment to make you whole again. Through loss, you discover pieces of yourself that were buried in someone else. The story of Yusuf alayhi salam reminds us that loss can be the beginning of destiny. Being thrown into a well was not the end of his story. It was the first step toward becoming a ruler. The loss of his family, the loss of freedom, the loss of comfort were the very things that led him to Egypt, where Allah elevated him. Sometimes Allah removes the life you know because a greater life is waiting ahead. You only see darkness. Allah sees direction. When Allah takes someone out of your life, it is often because your heart was leaning on them more than on Him. You might think their presence was a blessing, but Allah knows the future you cannot see. He knows who will betray you, who will harm your faith, who will slow your growth, and who will block your risk. So He removes them before the damage is done. What feels like abandonment is actually divine rescue. Loss exposes the illusion of control. We plan, we hope, we expect, and we cling. But Allah is the only one with full authority over our lives. When something slips away despite your effort, it is Allah telling you, this was not yours. Control is a burden, and loss lifts it from your shoulders. It reminds you that destiny belongs to Allah alone, and relief comes from releasing what you cannot hold on to. There are moments when Allah removes a blessing so He can replace it with a better one, but the heart cannot receive when it is full of something else. Loss empties the hand, the mind, and the soul so that better things can enter. The pain of losing what you love is temporary, but the blessing waiting for you is often permanent. Allah's plan may require space before it can begin unfolding. People often ask why Allah allows heartbreak if He knows the person meant so much to them. The truth is, sometimes Allah lets you love the wrong person to teach you how to love the right way. He teaches you patience through disappointment, clarity through confusion, and strength through separation. When the right person enters your life, you will recognize them because your heart has been trained by loss to value purity, sincerity, and calmness. Sometimes Allah removes the job you relied on because it was limiting your potential. You think you lost stability, but Allah sees a future opportunity that you would not pursue unless you were pushed. Loss forces movement. It awakens creativity, effort, and courage. What looks like collapse might be the very shift that leads you to your greatest success. Allah does not close doors randomly. He closes them to redirect you. Attachment is one of the greatest enemies of spiritual growth. The more you cling to creation, the more distant you become from the Creator. Loss teaches you balance. It teaches you to love without worshipping, to hold without gripping, and to appreciate without depending. When Allah takes something away, He is teaching you to keep your heart light enough to move when He moves you. There is a wisdom behind every separation Allah ordains. Some people are removed from your life because their presence would corrupt your character. Others leave because their journey cannot continue with yours. Some are taken because their time with you has fulfilled its purpose. Loss is not always punishment. Often it is completion. Allah ends chapters that you would never close on your own. One of the greatest blessings of loss is that it revives your dua. When life breaks you, you pray differently. You speak to Allah with sincerity, humility, and softness you never felt before. You ask Him to heal what no human can see. You cry in sujood until your heart feels lighter. Loss pushes you into the arms of Allah in a way comfort never could. The heart becomes closest to Him in the moments it feels most alone. Through loss, Allah removes arrogance. You begin to understand that strength does not come from you, but from Him. That peace is not achieved by holding on to people, but by holding on to Allah. That healing is not found in time alone, but in turning your pain into worship. Loss humbles the soul, softens the ego, and elevates the believer. It breaks what needs breaking and builds what needs building. When Allah removes something, He also removes the sin, arrogance, or attachment connected to it. You do not lose without gaining something unseen. Sometimes the loss itself is the purification. It cleanses your heart from pride, jealousy, dependence, or distraction. What you perceive as destruction might actually be spiritual surgery, painful but necessary. Loss reveals who truly loves you. When life is easy, people gather like shadows, but when hardship hits, many disappear. Loss removes false friends, selfish connections, and those who only stayed for benefits. It leaves behind sincerity. Allah filters your relationships through loss so you can see who deserves a place in the next chapter of your life. A believer never loses without being compensated. Allah promises that whoever sacrifices something for His sake will receive better. The better does not always come immediately, but it comes with certainty. Sometimes the replacement is a person, sometimes a blessing, sometimes peace, sometimes wisdom, and sometimes it is Allah Himself filling your heart with contentment that no creation could ever give you. Loss teaches gratitude in a powerful way. When something is taken, you begin to appreciate every small blessing you once overlooked. A day of peace, a sincere conversation, the ability to sleep, the presence of a loved one, the sound of the Quran. Loss makes the heart more attentive, more grateful, more alive. You start recognizing the value of everything before it disappears. Allah knows what would have happened if He allowed certain people or blessings to stay in your life. Maybe that friendship would have led you to sin, that relationship to heartbreak, that job to arrogance, that opportunity to disaster. We see the moment. Allah sees the entire road. When He removes, He is not depriving you. He is protecting you from a future you cannot see. Loss also teaches self-respect. When people walk away, you stop begging for attention. When someone mistreats you, you stop accepting the unacceptable. When someone leaves, you stop chasing what was never yours. Loss strengthens your dignity. Allah removes people who do not value you so He can replace them with those who will honor you, appreciate you, and help you grow closer to Him. Sometimes the biggest losses happen right before the biggest blessings. This is a pattern seen throughout the Quran. Maryam alayhi salam felt the deepest pain just before giving birth to one of the greatest prophets. Musa alayhi salam faced the sea with an army behind him just before Allah split it. When you feel surrounded by loss, it may mean that Allah is preparing a miracle that you cannot imagine. Loss forces you to rebuild, but this time with awareness. You build your heart differently. You choose people more carefully. You prioritize Allah more deeply. You protect your peace more fiercely. You stop repeating the mistakes of the past because pain has made you wiser. Allah removes the old version of your life so you can create a stronger, healthier, more faithful version of yourself. Your soul was not created to depend on temporary things. It was created to depend on the eternal. Loss reminds you of that truth. Everything you love in this world will leave you or you will leave it, but Allah remains. When you anchor your heart to Him, loss becomes bearable. When you love Him most, everything else becomes easier to let go. Loss can be the moment your entire faith changes. Before loss, you may have prayed out of habit. After loss, you pray out of need. Before loss, you may have spoken to Allah occasionally. After loss, you speak to Him constantly. Before loss, you may have relied on people. After loss, you rely on Him alone. This transformation is one of the greatest gifts Allah gives through hardship. Allah sometimes breaks your heart to rebuild it in a purer form. He removes the attachments that darkened it, the desires that weakened it, the friendships that polluted it. When the rebuilding is complete, your heart becomes a place where peace can finally live. You stop feeling heavy. You stop feeling lost. You stop feeling dependent on anyone but Him. What you lose today may be the exact thing that leads you to a better version of yourself tomorrow. Loss pushes you toward growth, toward maturity, toward self-discovery. It forces you to confront your fears, your insecurities, your weaknesses, and your strengths. You discover how strong you truly are when being strong becomes your only option. And with every step, Allah is guiding you. There is a peace that comes after loss that cannot be described. A peace that comes when you finally surrender. When you stop questioning Allah and start trusting Him. When you stop replaying the past and start walking into the future He prepared. When you stop clinging to what left and start embracing what is coming. That peace is one of Allah's greatest gifts. Every loss you experience is written with precision. There is nothing random in the life of a believer. Allah chooses what to take, when to take it, and why to take it, and every detail is perfectly designed for your growth. Loss is not the end of your destiny. It is the clearing of the path so your destiny can finally unfold. One day, you will look back and thank Allah for every loss that broke you. You will understand the relationships He removed, the opportunities He blocked, the friendships He ended, the places He pulled you away from. You will see how every loss was a lesson, every separation a mercy, every ending a beginning, and you will realize that Allah never took anything from you. He was preparing you for everything. And when Allah restores what you lost or replaces it with something far better, your heart will understand the wisdom behind every painful moment. Loss was never meant to ruin you. It was meant to refine you. It was not a punishment. It was a purification. And through it, Allah was clearing the way for a destiny brighter than anything you left behind. The man Allah shapes through pain becomes unshakable. The man who has been shaped by hardship does not break easily. Every tear he shed taught him how to endure. Every betrayal he suffered taught him who to trust. Every failure he faced taught him how to persevere. Allah does not allow pain to touch a believer unless that pain is meant to build him. Through loss, he gains wisdom. Through patience, he gains strength. Through surrender, he gains peace. And when Allah completes His training through pain, he becomes a man who cannot be shaken by the storms of life anymore. This man knows what it means to be abandoned by people and carried by Allah. He remembers the nights when no one asked how he was doing, yet Allah comforted his heart. He remembers the moments he felt lost, yet Allah gave him clarity. He remembers the days when he felt weak, yet Allah gave him the strength to continue. His heart is no longer afraid of loneliness because he has tasted the sweetness of relying on the one who never leaves. A man who has been shaped by pain learns that patience is not just waiting, it is trusting Allah during the wait. He doesn't complain as much as he used to. He no longer demands that life moves according to his timeline. He accepts that Allah knows when a blessing will benefit him and when it will destroy him. So he waits with calmness, he acts with purpose, and he prays with certainty. This kind of patience makes him strong, not just outwardly, but emotionally and spiritually. Allah uses pain to break the ego, not the soul. A proud man cannot walk the path of wisdom. A stubborn man cannot learn humility. A self-reliant man cannot discover tawakkul. So Allah places him in situations where his strength fails, where his plans collapse, where his confidence shakes, not to humiliate him, but to teach him reliance. When he finally learns to kneel, his heart rises. When he stops depending on people, he becomes stronger than he has ever been. The man shaped by pain becomes more compassionate. He cannot ignore the suffering of others because he understands suffering himself. He speaks gently because he knows how harsh words feel. He forgives because he knows the bitterness of being hurt. He helps quietly because he remembers what it means to struggle alone. Hardship softens him, not weakens him. He does not become fragile. He becomes more humane. Suffering teaches him the most important wisdom. Some battles are not meant to be fought, only surrendered to Allah. Not every situation needs his reaction. Not every insult needs his response. Not every loss needs his pursuit. He learns to pick his battles. His silence becomes a form of strength. His surrender becomes a form of power. He does not waste energy on what Allah has already removed. He trusts the unseen judgment of the one who knows what is best. He becomes unshakable because Allah has taken him through what he once thought would destroy him. The heartbreak that once made him cry now makes him wiser. The disappointment that once shattered him now makes him resilient. The loneliness that once scared him now makes him independent. His fear turns into reliance, his confusion into clarity, his anxiety into calmness. What once made him weak is now the source of his strength. When Allah shapes a man, he no longer sees life the way others do. People chase comfort, but he chases purpose. People seek attention, but he seeks sincerity. People fear loss, but he fears attachment. The world no longer controls his heart because he has seen how quickly it can change. He does not live for people anymore. He lives for his Lord. This shift in perspective is what makes him unshakable. A man shaped by pain masters the art of dua. He turns every challenge into a conversation with Allah. When something scares him, he asks Allah for courage. When something confuses him, he asks Allah for clarity. When something hurts him, he asks Allah for healing. His first reaction is not panic, it is sujood. And Allah promises that a man who turns to him consistently will never be left without guidance, without help, without peace. He learns that strength is not loud. It is not arrogance, control, or entitlement. True strength is quiet stability. It is being calm under pressure. It is being kind in anger. It is being patient in hardship. It is trusting Allah when everything seems uncertain. The strongest believers are not the ones who shout the loudest. They are the ones whose hearts remain firm when everything around them is shaking. The man shaped by Allah's test stops expecting an easy life. He does not waste time wishing for a path without struggle. Instead, he prays for a heart that can handle struggle. He does not wish for fewer tests. He asks Allah to make him worthy of passing them. Hardship trains him to face challenges with dignity, strength, and trust. He becomes the kind of man who does not fear difficulty. He faces it knowing Allah is with him. He stops blaming people for his pain and starts seeing Allah's wisdom in every event. He understands that some rejections were protection, some losses were redirection, some delays were preparation. He no longer asks, "Why did this happen to me?" He asks, "What is Allah teaching me through this?" This shift is what transforms pain into growth and grief into wisdom. The more he learns, the stronger he becomes. One of the first signs that Allah has shaped a man is that his reactions change. He does not jump to anger when provoked. He does not get impatient when delayed. He does not panic when tested. Instead, his heart says, "Allah is with me and nothing is random." This is not ignorance of reality. It is confidence in destiny. His calmness is not weakness, it is faith. And faith is the strongest armor a man can wear. Pain teaches him that not every closed door is a punishment. Some doors close because Allah wants him to walk through a different one. Some relationships end because Allah wants to protect his heart. Some dreams are delayed because Allah wants to give him something better. This understanding makes him less attached and more trusting. He becomes unshakable because he no longer fights Allah's plan. He flows with it. People may misunderstand him because his strength is silent. They may think he is indifferent, but he is simply disciplined. They may think he does not feel pain, but he has learned patience. They may think he does not care about the world, but he has learned not to cling to it. Pain teaches him emotional control, spiritual maturity, and inner security, qualities that cannot be faked or borrowed. A man shaped by pain does not rush his destiny anymore. He knows that a fruit ripens slowly, and if you pick it too early, it tastes bitter. Likewise, success, marriage, leadership, and spiritual growth take time. What is rushed becomes ruined. What is prepared becomes powerful. He waits without despair because he knows that Allah does not delay anything except for a wise reason. Pain teaches him to stop running from problems and to start facing them with tawakkul. He stops hiding behind excuses. He stops blaming others. He takes responsibility for his growth. He works, he prays, he tries, and he trusts. This humility turns into confidence, not ego-driven confidence, but faith-driven confidence. He becomes steady because he knows that Allah rewards effort, sincerity, and perseverance. He also learns that healing takes time. He does not force himself to get over it. Instead, he allows his heart to heal while staying connected to Allah. He knows that some wounds will make him wiser, not weaker. He understands that emotional recovery is not a race. True healing is not forgetting what happened, but learning from it and rising above it. His strength grows not by denying pain, but by outgrowing it. The man shaped by Allah becomes more selective with his company. He no longer tolerates negativity, arrogance, or toxicity. He values sincerity, honesty, and faith. He prefers meaningful relationships over large crowds. He prefers one real companion over 1,000 fake ones.